The evening sky stretched wide over the prairie, brushed with violet and gold, as if the day itself had been painted to soften the loneliness clinging to the land. Dust clung to Clara May's skirts as she walked, her twin daughters pressed close to either side, small hands clutching the fabric as though it were the only rope keeping them safe from a vast, indifferent world. Her breath shuddered in her chest, tears already streaking her cheeks, though she tried to hide them from Annie and Rose. But children notice more than they are told. The girls looked up at her with round, questioning eyes, and she found herself unable to meet them, for fear of breaking apart right there on the empty road. She had heard the whispers in town all week. 2 little ones and no husband. What man would want such a burden? The words stung because she believed them. Every door she had knocked upon had been answered with suspicion, pity, or outright rejection. She felt like a ghost haunting the edges of life, condemned to beg for shelter in a place where women like her were nothing more than shame stitched into skin. Her daughters deserved more, but what could she give? Every step toward the cabin at the far end of the settlement felt heavier, as though the ground itself tried to drag her back into silence. The cabin belonged to Silas Boone. Folks called him a drifter who had somehow stayed put, a cowboy with no ties but a strong back and a face marked by sun and solitude. She had never spoken more than a handful of words to him in passing, polite nods at the well, the faint acknowledgement of strangers who both lived apart from the center of things. Yet tonight, something inside her turned toward his door. Perhaps desperation guided her, or some old whisper of hope she thought she had buried. She knocked softly, her fist barely grazing the wood, as though she feared even the sound of her plea might scare him away. Her words tumbled out before she could stop them. "No man will accept me with children." They sounded brittle, almost foreign, as though spoken by someone else, someone already hollow. Annie clutched her doll, missing one eye, and Rose leaned against her leg, thumb in her mouth, both of them waiting to see if the world would once again push their mother aside. For a long moment there was only silence, the hush of wind through prairie grass, the creak of the cabin boards. Clara braced herself for the sound she knew too well, a door closing, a voice turned cold. But then the latch lifted, and the door opened slow, spilling firelight across the porch and catching the tears on her face. Silas Boone stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, his eyes shadowed but not unkind. He looked at her, then at the children, and the lines in his weathered face deepened not with judgment but something she could not name. She almost turned away, ashamed of standing there so exposed. Yet before she could move, his voice, low and steady, filled the air between them. "But I am here to hold you." The words pressed into her like warm hands over a wound, not healing yet but stopping the bleeding. Something inside her chest cracked, not with pain, but with the faintest ache of relief. She stepped across the threshold, her daughters trailing close, into the dim glow of his cabin. The room smelled of smoke and coffee, the fire snapping softly in the hearth. A pot of stew sat on the stove, bread wrapped in cloth on the table. The space was simple, yet it carried the weight of someone who had carved a life out of silence. Clara sat stiffly on the edge of a chair, unable to relax, as if kindness itself might vanish if she leaned into it. The girls, however, brightened quickly, drawn to the warmth and the novelty of a new space. Their giggles rose as they chased each other near the fire, their shadows dancing against the wall. Silas moved quietly, setting bowls on the table, ladling out stew. He placed bread before the girls, his rough hands strangely gentle as he broke it into small pieces. He did not ask questions, did not demand explanations. He simply moved, as though making space for them was the most natural thing in the world. Clara watched him closely, her shame and gratitude twisting together. She wanted to trust this moment, yet fear gnawed at her. Would he grow tired of them tomorrow as others had? Would she once again find herself walking the dusty road with nothing but her daughters and despair? The next morning, when she ventured into town for flour, whispers already followed her. "She's taken up at Boone's place. He doesn't know what he's getting into." Their voices carried the sharpness of knives meant to cut what little dignity she had left. Clara held her head low, her cheeks burning, but still she felt every stare. When Silas joined her at the counter, his presence seemed to draw the murmurs closer. He said nothing, simply tipped his hat lower and placed his body near hers, a quiet wall between her and the scorn. His silence did not erase the sting, but it steadied her steps as they left together. Still, she wondered, was silence enough to fight back a whole town's judgment? Days unfolded, each marked by small gestures that spoke louder than any declaration. Silas mended Annie's doll with a strip of leather from an old glove. He showed Rose how to whistle through a blade of grass until her laughter filled the yard. Clara watched these moments from the doorway, her heart aching in ways she had forgotten it could ache. She feared depending on them, feared leaning into the possibility that someone might stay. Silas himself remained quiet, though one evening, over the hum of crickets, he confessed in a halting way that he had never stayed anywhere long because he never had reason to. His eyes flickered toward her daughters as he said it, then back down to his hands. Clara felt her breath catch. Could it be that they were the reason now? Yet shadows lingered. One night, as wind rattled the windows, Clara's strength crumbled. She sat before the fire, head in her hands, and let the tears spill freely. Silas did not press her, only waited until words slipped through her sobs. She spoke of her late husband, of his betrayal, of how he left her before the twins were born, leaving her to face the world branded as less than whole. Her voice shook with the confession of how hope itself terrified her. Silas listened, his silence steady, like earth beneath a trembling body. When she finished, he reached for her hand, not with haste but with deliberate care, and held it until her breathing slowed. The firelight flickered over them, their shadows merging on the wall, and for the first time in years, Clara felt that maybe home was not a place but a person. But the world outside would not stay silent. The townsfolk, their whispers turning sharper, confronted Silas outside the saloon one evening. They told him he was throwing his life away, warned him that taking in Clara May and her children would ruin him. For the first time, Silas did not remain quiet. His voice rang firm against the night. My life was empty before them. Now it ain't. The words cut through the jeers, leaving silence in their wake. He walked away without another glance, but his declaration carried farther than the dust he kicked up on the road. Clara heard of it soon after, the tale carried back to her cabin like a wind she could not escape. Tears rose unbidden, not from shame this time but from something deeper, something that felt like a door swinging open inside her chest. That night, beneath the endless prairie stars, Silas knelt, not with a ring but with his hat in his hands, his voice low and steady. Stay. Let me hold you. All of you. His words were not polished, not wrapped in poetry, but they held more weight than any promise she had ever been given. Clara trembled as she listened, disbelief and longing colliding. And then, for the first time, she let herself believe. Their wedding came quietly, without grandeur, beneath a sky that seemed to stretch forever. Annie and Rose scattered wildflowers at their feet, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Life did not suddenly transform into ease. Storms still swept the plains, crops failed, and gossip never fully died. But together they tended the land, shared laughter by the hearth, and faced hardship side by side. Each small act of care became a thread weaving them into something unbreakable. Clara, once bowed by rejection, rose each morning now with dignity. The woman who once wept at a stranger's door had found herself welcomed, not despite her children but because of them. And as the years stretched on, she learned a truth she wanted to place gently into the hands of anyone who might be listening. In a world that measures worth by what is lost, the rarest treasure is love that sees all of you, even the pieces you thought unworthy. When such love comes, quiet, unassuming yet unshakable, do not turn away. Let it in, for it may not only change your days but the shape of your soul.